Hi everyone. Today we are going to learn how to identify and interpret rational numbers. After this lesson, you should be able to say, I can graph rational numbers and find their opposites. A positive number is a number greater than 0. A negative number is a number less than 0. Positive numbers can be written with or without a positive sign, but they are usually written without it. Negative numbers are always written with a negative sign. Here we have a horizontal number line. To the left of 0, we have negative integers. To the right of 0, we have positive integers. Number 1. The results of 3 football plays are shown in the table below. What does 0 represent in this situation? 0 represents neither a gain nor a loss in yards. What do negative numbers represent in this situation? They represent yards lost. What do positive numbers represent in this situation? Yards gained. Complete the number line, then plot a point for each net yards value from the table. We are going to fill in to the left of 0, -3, -4, and -5, and we are going to fill in to the right of 0, 2, and 3. Now we are going to plot each net yards value. The first net yard value is 4, so we are going to plot a point on 4. The next net yards is -1, so we are going to plot a point on -1 on the number line. Our next net yard value is -4, so we plot a point on -4 on the number line. Two numbers are opposites if, on a number line, they are the same distance from 0, but on different sides of 0. Integers are the set of all whole numbers and their opposites. The integer 4 is 4 units from 0 on the number line, so that would be represented as a positive 4. Which integer is also 4 units from 0 on the number line? That would be -4. How is this integer related to the integer of 4? Well, -4 is the opposite of positive 4. How many units from 0 is 0 on the number line? What is the opposite of 0? 0 is 0 units from 0 on the number line. 0 is its own opposite. What is the opposite of 5? This is written as negative, taking the negative of -5. Explain. So the opposite of 5 is 5. The opposite of 5 is -5. And then the opposite of -5 is 5. So pretty much when you take the opposite of a number, it is going to say the exact same number. A rational number is a number that can be written in the form a over b, where a and b are integers and b does not equal 0. Number 2. In January, the average low temperature in Nome, Alaska is the rational number -2 8/10 degrees Fahrenheit. To graph integers, you can use marks on a number line that increase by ones. What marks would you need to graph -2 8/10 on a number line? Well, since -2 8/10 is a decimal to the tens place, you would need marks that increase by tenths. Between what two consecutive integers is -2 and 8/10 located on a number line? -2 and 8/10 is between the integers -3 and -2. How would you graph -2 and 8/10 on a number line? I would plot a point 8/10 to the left of -2. Complete the statement to describe the position of -2 and 8/10 compared to 0. -2 and 8/10 is 2 and 8/10 units to the left of 0. What is the opposite of -2 and 8/10? The opposite of -2 and 8/10 will be a +2 and 8/10, which is to the right of 0. So the opposite of -2 and 8/10 is 2 and 8/10. Graph -2 and 8/10 and its opposite on the number line. So since our whole number is a -2, we find -2 on a number line, and we have 8/10, so we are going to count to 8/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there is -2 and 8/10 on our number line. Now we need to find the opposite of that, which is 2 and 8/10, but we're going to plot 2 and 8/10 on the number line. So since 2 is a whole number, we find 2 on our number line, and we count over 8/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 3. The legs of a swing set are buried as shown. So here's the picture of the swing set, and it says legs are buried 1/2 foot in the ground. What marks on a number line would you need to graph 1/2? You would need marks measured in half units. Describe the position of 1/2 on a number line. 1/2 is between the integers 0 and 1. 1/2 is 1/2 unit to the right of 0. The opposite of 1/2 will be 1/2 to the left of 0. So the opposite of 1/2 is -1/2. Graph 1/2 and its opposite on the number line. So since 1/2 is in between 0 and 1, we are going to plot 1/2 halfway in between 0 and 1. The opposite of 1/2 is -1/2, which would be in the middle of 0 and -1. An investment gains $5 in value on one day. The next day it loses $3 in value. Represent each of these changes using integers. So since it says an investment gains $5, the word gains tells you that it's going to be a +5. Here it says next day it loses $3, so the word loses means it's going to be a negative integer, so -$3. Iman is playing a game. On one turn, she earns 2 points, and on the next turn, she loses 5 points. Graph her points for each turn on the number line. So since it says on one turn she earns 2 points, the word earns means that 2 is going to be +2. So we are going to graph a point on +2 on the number line. Then it says she loses 5 points, so the word loses means that 5 is going to be a -5. So we graph put a point on the number line at -5. For problems 3 through 6, find the opposite of the number. The opposite of 4 and 5/10 is -4 and 5/10. The opposite of -8 is 8. The opposite of -25 is 25. And the opposite of 1/4 is -1/4. The absolute value of a number is the distance from the number to 0 on a number line, shown by absolute value bars. Here is an example. The absolute value of positive 5, we would start at 0, and we would find the distance that 5 is away from 0. Here is 5, so we are going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. Because 5 is 5 units away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The absolute value of negative 5. We're going to start at 0, and we're going to find the distance that negative 5 is away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like negative 5 is 5 units away from 0 as well. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. Absolute value is always positive because it measures distance. I would like you to pause this video at this point so that you can work on all of the even numbers on page 9 and all of the even numbers on page 10. Number 10 says, last week, her time spent running decreased by 2 minutes. What integer could represent this change? Well, since it says decreased by 2 minutes, the word decreased means that our integer is going to be negative. So that is going to be represented by a negative 2. In words, what is the opposite of increased by negative 1? Well, the opposite of increase is decrease, so our integer would be a negative 1. Question number 14. Two integers are opposites of each other. One integer is 3 units to the right of 1 on the number line. What are the two integers? Well, since it says one integer is 3 units to the right of 1 on the number line, we're going to start at 1, and we are going to count over 3. 1, 2, 3, and we land at 4. So one integer is 3 units to the right of 1 on the number line, so that would be 4. What are the two integers? Well, that would be 4 and the opposite, negative 4. For problems 15 through 17, use the number line to graph the opposite of each number. Label each point. So since we are only working on even numbers, let's take a look at 16. We have 25 hundredths. Well, the opposite of 25 hundredths would be a negative 25 hundredths. Negative 25 hundredths. So negative 25 hundredths isn't quite to a negative 1 yet. And it looks like that each of our sections are divided into 4 equal sections. 25 hundredths, let's think of quarters. You need 4 quarters to make a dollar. So we would only go over to the first section after 0. And we're going to plot negative 25 hundredths. Number 18. Rana starts at the base of a hill that has an elevation of 25 feet below sea level. Then Rana climbs to the top of the hill, which has an elevation of 25 feet above sea level. Represent these elevations as integers. How are they related? Well, it says that it's 25 feet below sea level, so the word below tells us our integer is going to be a negative 25. The words climbs to the top of the hill, that would be positive, so we would represent that as a positive 25. How are these two integers related? They are opposites. Number 20, it says graph each number and its opposite on the number line. So let's start out with negative 1 and 2/10. So we would find negative 1, and we would count over 1, 2 for the 2/10, and label that negative 1 and 2/10. Now let's graph the opposite of negative 1 and 2/10. We'd go to positive 1 and count over 1, 2 for the 2/10, and label that positive 1 and 2/10. Our next number is negative 5/10. So negative 5/10 is not quite to negative 1 yet. So let's count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's label negative 5/10. Now we have to graph its opposite. So we are going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and label 5/10. Our next number is 3/10. So we are going to count over 1, 2, 3, and label that 3/10. And now it's opposite. We're going to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, negative 3/10. Our last number is 9/10. So we're going to go to the right since it's a positive 9/10 and count over 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and label that point 9/10. Now we're going to graph the opposite. Well, the opposite of 9/10 is a negative 9/10, so we are going to go to the left of 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and label that point negative 9/10. Number 22. Find the absolute value of each number. The absolute value, remember the absolute value bars? Absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 5 and 10 hundredths is 5 and 10 hundredths.